Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Matthew Dickerson. Tech Talk. Sit back and relax. It's time to talk technology.
Greetings, Trivia Night champions, problem solvers, and members of Mensa. It's time to clear some space in your prefrontal cortex because we have a double load of new ideas for you to fold up and stow away with the single purpose of increasing your brainage today. Welcome to Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. It's the all-talk and ad-free podcast with 20% more tech than 96.7% of all other tech podcasts. Now, if you find another podcast with more tech in it, then let us know and we'll beat them by 10%. And here to deliver on all the stats, it's the man who is so clever that they named a whole podcast after him. It's Matthew Dickerson, sounding a little bit like Barry White today, mate.
A little bit like Barry White. Is it a good thing to have that husky voice? It worked for Barry White, I suppose, so let's work it, I reckon. So we did have our school reunion last night, so I won't mention how many decades
fantastic.
It was.
Yeah, right.
But one of the things, obviously, a technology bent is on everything, but one of the things that was fascinating is that many years ago, there were three of us that organised the school reunion at that time. So this is going back to the early 90s. We organised our first school reunion. And we were talking about it last night I wasn't organising this one. There were three other people who organised this one, and well done to them. Thank you for your efforts. But we were talking about the changes in technology and how you had to organise something 30 years ago compared to how you organise it now. And after school, we'd managed to get an address list from the school. That wouldn't be allowed these days, too many privacy laws. But so we had an address list of where these people were in year 10, because that school that we're at finished at year 10. So where they were in year 10. So 10 years later, we're doing the reunion. So we were literally sending letters to these places, hoping that the
people
mum and dad...
mum and dad might still be there. Yeah.
We were banking on mum and dad more than anything else. So we started about 8 months before the reunion date.
Yeah.
And that was the first approach. Send out letters to all the people. And if you've got the address of your child, or if it's someone else who lives there, please help us out. So that came back to us. So we did 3 rounds of letters with more information each time to try and get there. No mobile phones to contact people on. Wow. Landlines, we had all these landline numbers to try and ring people on. So the process to just get together everyone, and I found some old letters. I was looking through some stuff coming up to this reunion. The letters we sent out, thank you for the information. Could you please pass this on?
That were typed?
Oh, they were typed up, but that was another part of it. We had this crazy idea of saying, wouldn't it be good to hear what people have done in the last 10 years? So we said, send in your life story. And people did. Fantastic. Lots of handwritten life stories. So then we said, well, great, we can't take these and just photocopy them and put them in a book. So we had to get one of us to type them all up. So all the time to type all those letters up. And then even the production of the booklet, it was a process to get – I used a program called PageMaker 4.5 for DOS. So laying out the booklet, the text was okay, but photos, we were going to put some old photos in there as well. Well, you couldn't just scan. Well, did we have a scanner at all? You couldn't just scan them and put them into the document. So we'd leave a little space in the document. When we print that page, we'd literally cut out
a photo. Yep.
And it was the cut and paste, not using Control X and Control V.
And resizing, forget it.
That's right. So you'd stick those in and then we'd photocopy those, but manual production of the booklet. In other words, manual collation. And I remember the last day we were producing the magazine, we had about 20 of our friends from school come around, and that was their job, all these magazines. Right, everyone, go along, pick up a page one at a time, don't miss one,
boom,
and then collate it.
Whack
Whereas
a staple in,
when I reproduced it this time, it was print, duplex, X number of copies, and collate. And there we go, there's that one. I had to fold it in half and staple it. So, but just the contacting people using various online tools. Now we've just got a group, a messenger group we use. It was, hey everyone, we're going to do a reunion. Here's the date, here's the time. Pay your money to this bank account. And that, I'm not trying to play down the three organisers did much more than that, but that's the basis of just contacting people. So it's so much easier now with technology.
Well, you tell young kids these days and they won't believe you.
It does sound like a Monty Python skit, doesn't it? So.
All right, folks, get comfy because we're building a ton of synaptic connections in your cerebrum today. Now, we'll be decoding peak hour traffic for a smoother run of green lights all the way home. We're looking into a new and easy way to spot skin cancers, and we've got a little something for the nocturnal types with a new generation of night vision. But let's get cracking with a story that'll get tongues wagging. Tired of debilitating RSI from overworking your mouse-clicking hand? Yeah, me too. Well, fret no longer, friends. The answer is here, and we're taking your troubles out of your hands, and we're putting the answer literally in your mouth. Matt, a tongue-controlled mouse might also keep the office chatterbox quiet for a couple of minutes.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it? The tongue's actually quite an interesting little muscle. It's got 8 muscles actually in it, not just one.
Yeah.
And it actually is very good at resisting fatigue. Unlike going for a run and you get some lactic acid build-up, that type of thing, the tongue is actually very good.
Can just keep going and going and
It
going.
does, which again, with some people in the office, maybe that's not such a great thing, but it is actually quite good. So in this particular example, it's probably along the lines of Neuralink that we've talked about before, but not everyone loves the idea of having something inserted in their brain. I'm not sure why. People are a bit funny about things these days, but...
Yeah, holes in my head. Yeah, drilling holes in the head is...
Yeah, what the heck. And then connecting some little electrodes into my brain to then control it.
For sure.
But there are people out there that need some help in controlling their computer for a whole range of reasons. They might not have the ability to use their arms. They might have some sort of disability. They might even have something like Parkinson's where they're a bit shaky, and a mouse that's a bit shaky obviously makes it hard to move around and click. Neuralink we've talked about before, where you can think about where you want that mouse cursor to go, and they're getting there. It's a bit clumsy at this stage, but they'll get there. But this example is using a tongue-controlled mouse cursor. I like to call it a MouthPad.
Ah, nice.
It's got to have some sort of groovy name, but it basically looks like a bit like a lollipop, I suppose you'd call it. As you move your tongue around on that lollipop, it would be like moving a cursor around your screen. Click, double click. You can just click like you can do to do something, or a bit of a suck to do a double click. So you might make a slightly different action in your mouth to do something like that. And the testing so far, and I watched a little video of it, it's actually reasonable. It's not fantastic, but I started thinking of other things. One of the things that I find frustrating sometimes is on a plane, when I'm traveling on a plane, and I still like to use a good old-fashioned mouse because you've got a bit more control. Mm-hmm. The touchpad on the computer on the notebook when you're sitting on a plane,
I find it a bit claustrophobic.
It's a bit claustrophobic, and it never seems as accurate. Yeah. And then if you get your elbows out too far, if there's someone beside you, they get a bit annoyed with you and all the rest of it. So I thought, imagine the idea of just sitting in a plane, slipping this into your mouth, and there's my mouse control for my computer, and then away I go from there. So again, the focus is more about people that can't use a mouse, people that have problems controlling it. But then...
Imagine a plane full of people using these. It's going to sound like people clicking and...
That's right. All these funny little noises coming out. So the other part then is if you've got something where you can control a mouse, then why couldn't you control, say, a wheelchair, a robotic arm, robotic legs? If you can get to the stage where there's enough control with your tongue over some device in your mouth, then maybe other things could be controlled as well. And sometimes it starts off with one idea and someone says, well, that's not bad, but we could adapt it to this and adapt it to that. And then before you know it, someone sits there that they might be a quadriplegic, and they can control a wheelchair and move around and have an arm reach out and pick up a cup of coffee and have a drink out of it. So
it's amazing. Yeah. It just takes the right person to come up with the right idea using something that someone else has come up with. I think that's a great concept. And
even the whole idea of how can we control a mouse? So the Neuralink one, there's one option, but what other things can we do? Now, we've seen things with eyes where people can try and track eyes and move around a mouse with that, and that's not great, but it's workable a bit. But the tongue,
last week we were talking about people controlling a thumb with their toes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah? So it's just, creativity. The human brain is a wonderful thing and comes up with some amazing ideas. Here's a story for the night owls. Current night vision goggles are pretty cool, but they're really heavy and they border on being impractical. It's high time night vision goggles got an upgrade. Now, for an unfair advantage playing Murder in the Dark, Matt, what's the latest for nocturnal types? Well, I actually started thinking about this whole idea of night vision goggles or glasses, and I thought back to the old comics, Phantom comics. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And you get that page load of things like the X-ray specs. X-ray specs, they were the ones. So I actually went and found an ad with the X-ray specs because I'm thinking, surely no one believed
you could put on these glasses and see through things. And so I wanted to see how could they possibly get away with it.
Buy little spy cameras and stuff like that, but the X-ray specs, they were
X-ray specs. And so I found an old ad. It had X-ray specs for only $1. Now we are going back a few years, obviously.
So you found an old Fandom comic?
Well, online found pictures of some of these ads. So
Right.
I went specifically looking for the
Just
X-ray
wondering if you
specs.
mailed in a little note asking them if you can still buy one for $1.50.
That's right, yeah. They were $1.25 postage.
25 cents, there you go, 25 cents postage.
So a quarter of the cost of the product was the postage itself. So the ad said, the scientific optical principle really works. So I'm not sure what scientific optical principle. Maybe they were saying X-rays really work. So yes, that's correct. X-rays really work. So maybe that was it. Then it said, hold your hand in front of you. You seem, in inverted commas, you seem to be able to look right through the flesh and see the bones underneath. So it was making a fairly bold claim there. Now, I'm thinking in Australia here, ACCC wasn't created until 1995, so I don't know who you complained to about false advertising back in those days.
They never got my money, but geez, I wanted to spend it on them.
I wanted it so badly, but I just couldn't understand how it could possibly work. So I think probably only the most gullible actually fell for that and actually bought some of those things. But if someone had have said in that same context, here's an ad for put some glasses on that look like normal glasses and see at night, I would have been, sure thing, just as cynical as the X-ray specs. But not so quick, it turns out. Maybe there is some future here. Now, let's go to the electromagnetic spectrum. So, as we know, it goes from, say, gamma rays at one end all the way through to radio waves at the other end.
Yep.
And there's only a small part of that that's in poor old humans in our poor old body, the visible light spectrum in there. So what are we, 380 to 700 nanometers roughly, say?
Yeah, that's a pretty good estimate. Yeah. I would have even brought it smaller than that, 450 about 700, I think.
So you're getting that section of it there. Now, goggles, the night vision goggles you mentioned at the beginning, I'm experts on those because I've seen them in movies where the bad guy always has night vision goggles in the basement so he can see around there. But, of course, they're big. They stick out a long way. If you're trying to sneak around and be the bad guy, run into something there or clunk on something there.
They're big and heavy too, I understand.
They'd be heavy and they need power to run them as well. So you need some sort of power source. And everything's got a green tinge, which you can probably live with because obviously you're seeing things where other people can't. What they typically do is they take any little tiny bit of light and magnify it. So they're basically magnifying the light that's around there. And you've also got some different versions of that would emit an infrared light, so you can see a reflection of that infrared light and they convert that. And that's how CCTV works. You'll see night vision CCTV, and night vision CCTV is exceptional in its quality now. Not colour, but the quality you get out of it in a mono version is quite incredible.
Yeah.
What we found with this particular example, get away from the bulkiness of the standard night vision goggles, get away from needing power. Researchers have come up with a thin film made of lithium niobate and silicon dioxide gratings. And what that does is it converts infrared light into visible light. Quite incredible.
Amazing.
So
right.
It's taking infrared light around, say, 1550 nanometers and converting it to 550. So you put this film across normal-ish glasses and essentially you just look at what you might be looking at. Now, there's going to be some infrared light there somewhere typically. Everything that's not at absolute zero is emitting some infrared light, maybe not a lot of it, but this will actually take whatever it can see there and convert it. So you could wear glasses that look normal, a thin film, that's it. So a bit like sunglasses, you're probably not going to be able to see that it's a bit thicker in the glass, and then suddenly, and it's not going to make it look like daylight, but it's going to make it look a bit like CCTV that's maybe a little bit dim still, depending on how much infrared light was around. So any infrared light. So if you're out walking early in the morning, I was thinking of some not down in the basement villain type scenarios here.
Okay, righto.
I was thinking about how you might use them in a practical sense, but I thought people go out for early morning walks, particularly in winter, and it's dark. Yeah. And they might be getting to some track or where there are lights there, but it's still generally dark. People might be out riding their push bikes early in the morning. Kangaroos are a bit of a problem. You've got lights on that are typically shining down the road, but not so much to the side. So there are examples, even in the middle of the night. You sometimes get up in the middle of the night. You don't want to turn the light on to wake up your partner. So you sneak around the bed and someone's left a Lego piece on the ground and then that stepped on. And so just having the glasses beside the bed, pop them on, walk around at night without too many problems. Again, there'll be enough infrared light in your house that you'll be able to pick up on that. So again, as with most things we talk about at the research prototype stage, but I can't imagine if they get this right, I can't imagine that there won't be a bunch of different sunglass manufacturers out there.
It'll just become normal.
They will just become normal. It'll be, we've got sunglasses that are polarized, or we've got sunglasses that are night vision sunglasses, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't call them sunglasses, maybe moon glasses. Yeah, but quite fascinating the way that we've got an accepted way that we use for night vision, but someone said, no, let's do it better than that. I don't like the idea of those bulky goggles. I want to do it better. And again, coming up with the right materials to do that conversion. The secret word in all of that is up conversion. So it does a frequency up conversion. That's the thing you need to use in your next barbecue chat.
So I'm thinking about the current night vision goggles. The big weakness is that a flash of light, was destructive, right? So,
you've seen movies as well.
Yeah, I've seen them all. But with these, we're just converting a frequency into a different frequency, so that wouldn't be an issue. The intensity wouldn't be the problem.
Correct, and you make a good point there that because the night vision goggles are amplifying that light, you're right. You have a bright light, and suddenly it's you get blinded by the light. Whereas this, exactly right, normal parts of the visible spectrum would come through without a problem. But that 50 nanometers infrared, unless you blinded someone with lots of infrared, but even then it's only converting whatever's there to visible. So
don't stare into the log fire, but or
don't go and look closely at CCTV cameras because they might have infrared coming out at night time. So I think you're not going to get blinded by something like that. So quite fascinating.
Very good. Here's an encouraging story all about creating order out of the chaos of peak hour traffic. Now, I had always figured that getting a run of green lights was just pure good fortune, a glitch in the matrix perhaps. Actually organising them to occur in sequence was surely a thing of Hollywood myth, a folly, an impossibility. There are too many permutations to that problem, folks. But Matt, it seems that without the need of any new hardware, a traffic revolution is at hand here.
Quite possibly using metadata, for want of a better word, that's a bit more complicated than that, but using what you've already got available, which is some way of tracking where people's phones are and how many there are there. Other things as well, in terms of cars that have got telemetry on board and that information being available. But if you go back a couple of steps, normal traffic lights, and even they're getting a bit better now, but in the past, there were sensors in the ground and there was a timing process that was set up. So the major road might be going one way, that had preferential treatment, so that would stay green a bit longer, and then the side street might be green a bit less longer than that. And I know you'd be sitting at those traffic lights on the side street looking up and down the major road going, there's not a car inside.
Oh, middle of the night, it was late night and you're stuck at the lights and there's no one else around. I want to so badly go. I just want to do it. And in the old days, it seems like every intersection now has got a roundabout or a giveaway sign or traffic lights, but back when you and I got our licences, it was give way to your right. It seemed like a fairly simple process. Right, someone on my right, give way, someone on my left, okay, I can go, no problems at all. Well, it still had accidents, but maybe some problems. But with the traffic lights there, it's sitting there going, I'm giving way to my right. It's okay, I want to go. But of course, you don't because you're not want to breaking the law. But it's the timing there where it's just set timing. So it's set up for peak timing. Some cleverer traffic lights have the ability to then change their timing depending on traffic flows and the time of day. So in the middle of the night scenario there, you come along and you trigger the sensor on your side, it changes pretty quickly. And you've probably seen traffic lights like that where, they change pretty quickly. Fantastic. It stays green on the major road most of the time until a trigger. But this is a little bit cleverer than all of that. Well, a lot cleverer than all of that. It tracks the movement of cars. And rather than waiting for that one sensor on the road to go, okay, we've got a car there now. How many have you got? Oh, well, we got triggered, so that should be enough to give us information. Sometimes the sensor's back a bit, so it might be, it's triggered twice. But in this scenario, just tracking where those phones are in cars, where the cars are themselves, and then saying, now, we know how many cars are flying along this direction. We know the best time, and writing an algorithm to do that is a challenge, the best time to change these lights. And when you break it down, there's some work done in the US, 10% of travel time in city traffic, so not going out on country roads, 10% of time in city travel is spent sitting at a red light. So it's a fair amount of travel. You think about if it takes you 20 minutes to get somewhere, 2 minutes of that is just sitting at a red light. Twiddling your thumbs.
So, exactly right. Now, they've started doing this testing already, some trial sites, 14 cities, including Abu Dhabi, Hamburg, Seattle. So the idea here is that they think they can get a reduction just without making any changes to the traffic light hardware. Obviously, there'd be a change in terms of the way it's triggered, but nothing installed underground, nothing needed to be upgraded on the hardware apart from being able to receive this information. They say a 30% reduction without having to upgrade the hardware.
That's amazing.
It is. And we talk about the wonderful future, we've talked about it before, where all our cars are connected and there's a car coming along, hey, stop car being driven by James because I'm coming along this direction and I've got right of way, and so the cars can talk. But you need all cars, or at least the majority of cars, to be connected to do that, because it gets a bit of a problem if you've only got a few cars like that. So that's a long way down the track. But this now, because we've got mobile phones sitting in our cars, then we've got this metadata we can get access to start to make some of these real-time decisions. And we see it now on Google Maps. You see, or on any map, whatever map software you use, you'll see different parts of different colours on the map, and that's just reporting basically how many phones are seen in that section of the road. So
what you need to do is carpool. So you've got 4 people each with phones in your car, which makes it look like there's 4 cars.
4 cars,
coming.
that's right.
Bingo, you get that run of green lights.
Yeah, I wonder how they go about addressing that. I wonder if they've got some sort of algorithm.
I just reckon that's going to be excellent for people carpooling.
Yeah, well, it
more
encourages
carpooling and encouraging that. Yeah.
Anyway, we've got some changes happening here, hopefully at some stage in the near future. This is a bit closer because they're already trialling it right now. Just a matter of upgrading some of the traffic lights around near where you live.
Okay, folks, this story is going to get the skeptics fidgeting in their chairs. We talk a lot of weird and wonderful new gadgets on Tech Talk here, and for the better part, by far they are 100% legit, albeit that some may be still in their design phase, shall we say. Matt, I don't want to undersell anything that you ever serve up, but today, here, now, you're going to tell me that researchers are working on an AI doggy dictionary to translate barking into English.
Now, I suspect that someone picked up the 1920 book, The Story of Dr. Dolittle, written by Hugh Lofting, and said, I like the idea of talking to the animals. I wonder how I can do it. In 1920, it was a nice bit of fiction, but we go to 2024 and already they've been doing training with an AI tool to listen to the dog bark. Now, I have got a bit of an issue with this, which I'll get to in a moment. But
I think we all have. But anyway.
they've got the same tools they use for listening, same AI tools listening for human voices. And then they're saying, okay, the vocabulary may be less, but let's see if we can pick up enough nuances in the dog bark to determine what the dog is saying, in inverted commas. So the first thing they did was they got dogs actually and listened to the barking of this. And then, and here's the challenge, who's to say that when the dog went roof, that meant I would like some food, or I want to go outside, or I'm playful, or I'm angry, or there's an intruder coming. So someone has to say to the AI tool, that bark meant this. So at some point in there, the human has to say, I think I know what the dog's saying.
And is there a special bark that's going to say, no, I didn't mean that?
That's right. So put that to a side for a moment. But to me, that's the real challenge in this whole process, because I'm sure an AI tool could pick up different barks. I don't have a problem with that at all.
Yep.
But then I don't know how the AI is going to say what that means.
Give it some words.
That's right. And then I don't know how a human's going to say what that means, because I've got a dog and the dog makes noises and I go, here, open the door. Do you want to go outside?
Yeah.
Or no. Oh, you've got food there. Do you want to go? No. Someone's at the door. So it's all these different things.
Yeah.
Interpreting that is interesting. Now, what they have been able to do some interesting things. They have been able to determine different breeds of dog by the bark. And that makes sense. Different size dog, maybe a deeper bark for a larger dog and a high-pitched bark for a smaller dog, for example. So I can understand that, but most people can look at the dog and go, yep, that's a poodle. So I don't know what that's going to do to help us.
Have you seen the Gary Larson Far Side comic where we've got the professor putting on the headphones for the dog barking translation? And you've got these dogs barking at him, and the words that are coming through are, hey, 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 hey. Anyway.
It does feel a bit like that, doesn't it? What I want to see is getting to the stage where you've got tools now, I use them when I go overseas, where I speak in English and it translates that to Spanish, and then the person speaks in Spanish and comes back to me in English. So can we get a tool like that we can sit in our home, the dog barks and it says hopefully not just hey. It says, I want to go outside. I want to go and play.
Yeah, I'm not convinced I even want to know. It's just like I would just rather make a decision on behalf of the dog.
Yeah, right.
Okay, we are going for a walk.
So-
You are going to get fed.
So dictatorship is more your go, rather.
That's what I need.
Yeah,
yes. Yeah, when it starts becoming a master because it's making demands. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And then sitting there going, I know you know what I'm saying because you've got this interpreter here. You can't play dumb anymore, James. Sometimes people come up with stuff just because it seems like fun to do.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what this is. But I mean, it's a university doing the research, so someone's obviously been able to pitch it to
Could be
their
for a laugh.
professor. Well, it could be as well. Yeah,
I wonder if dogs are going to start reciting Shakespeare.
Listen to enough dog barks and you'll create Shakespeare.
And in an act that could be described as kicking a judicial hornet's nest, the UK government is considering the possibility of leaning so heavily into AI that it may just end up sitting on the bench in future court cases. Matt, AI may be completely impartial, but there's got to be some broader implications here as well.
I actually did an April Fool's Day joke previously where I said that governments had announced that they were going to add an AI politician, an AI counsellor into the mix because you take all that emotion out of it and you just have this decision-making process that would take all the data, all the facts and say, there's my decision.
And it brought the emotion out of the people, didn't it?
It did bring the emotion out of the people. I think people even called me names about that one. So until they looked at the date and then they called me more names because they got tricked. But I do like the idea of analysing the data. Now, the problem that some people from the legal profession have, not surprisingly, is that they say judges can use their discretion to justify certain actions. So someone steals something because they want to get rich, or someone steals something because they need to put food on their table, judges might have some sort of discretion in analysing the backstory as to why someone has ended up in my courtroom. If you took it just with an AI tool and said, no empathy, no looking at the backstory, tell the backstory, but I'm going to judge it on the actions. You stole that. Here's my program that says, here's what you will be punished with for that.
Yep.
End of story, job done.
Jean Valjean's going to do his hard labour for the stealing the loaf of bread.
Exactly right. Thank you. So that's where the argument is about just taking that out. Now, the counter argument to that is create the laws in such a way that you actually deliver consistently across the board what you need. So, for example, stealing something below X dollars first time, you get a smack on the hand. Come back the third time, then yes, this is what's going to happen to you. So you know the rules, and I'm sure solicitors do it. It happens in the movie, so it must be true, where they say, oh, let's not go to court on that day because we've got Judge ABC. Let's go next week when we've got Judge XYZ. We know that judge is better with this type of case. When people start to talk like that, then you know there's biases, there's preferences coming in. But then, flip to the other side of that, we've seen with AI tools, because they're gathering information that's out there and there are biases in the society, then the AI tool has been shown to have biases. So they've used AI tools, for example, in doing job selection and in looking at CVs initially to pick people to be interviewed. And there have been biases in that. There have been certain biases where certain people, certain backgrounds, certain ethnic or ethnicity, they've been picked because there have been those biases present in society.
So biases inescapable even for AI.
Even for AI. So having those biases when someone appears before them in a courtroom, they would probably come through as well. It's a really interesting discussion. They've tried a few things so far where they've done some mock trials, or they've had a case that has actually gone to a normal court system and it's come out the other end, and then they've given that to AI. And that's really what they found, is that there was just no anywhere there for some sort of ethical discussion, argument about why this person was in front of the court and maybe the punishment should be a little bit different. It was just, here's the rules, that's the outcome.
Well, yeah, being a magistrate or a judge, it's something that really needs, I think, to have that humanity behind it.
Well, especially,
and a lot of people have their own opinions about this, but
yeah, but especially if you are saying you've got to have a custodial sentence, that's a pretty big call. And for a human, for a judge, to get to that point, sorry, James, you are such a danger to society. I'm going to put you somewhere where you're not interacting with society. Wow, that's a big call. So you want to be sure it's the right thing to do before that judge says that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Jury's a different story again. But it's an interesting discussion, and maybe even running some of these cases parallel would be interesting to see what things that might be missed. For example, a judge could look at that and say, what would AI do? Okay, I hadn't thought about it from that angle. I'll think about that in my final judgment. So maybe it's a tool rather than the final outcome.
Well, I wonder what other sort of pressures are behind the UK government's consideration here. I mean, is it just a shortage of numbers of people to sit on the bench? Is it other pressures that are involved as well? I don't know.
I think the main driver is efficiency.
Yeah,
so the court system, as with court systems apparently across the world, clogged up, and it just takes so long. I'll read an article one day about something that's happening, someone going to court, and I'll forget about it. And 6 months later, right now, the next court appearance, what happened for that 6 months? Why did it take them so long did it take them that long to get the evidence for some seemingly minor indiscretion there? So it's efficiency, but also fairer decisions, I suppose, and that's where the challenge is. What is a fairer decision?
It's also much harder to threaten a computer, isn't it?
That's right.
You feel like
maybe the programmers, if you don't go and change that algorithm.
Now, a big MRI machine is an absolute beast in the field of medical diagnostics. They're enormous, noisy, and super expensive to run. In order to get those massive magnetic fields that are needed, you need enormous superconductors that have to be kept at around about minus 260 or so degrees, which takes quite a bit of energy. But Matt, in the spirit of progress, AI is coming to the rescue and may potentially downsize the whole operation of MRI diagnostics.
I'm going to quote James Eddy here.
Ah.
Material science. That's the future. Material science. At the moment, MRI machines use niobium tin alloys, and that's expensive. And as you say, they're bulky and expensive. So let's throw a bit of AI at this problem. What can you come up with to produce some sort of iron-based superconductor or a superconducting magnet? What can you do with that? And so, funnily enough, AI said, let's make some changes in the sizes or varying the sizes of the iron crystals instead of having uniform iron crystals. And they basically come up with an iron-based superconductor. It takes less energy to run, dramatically cheaper iron's much easier to obtain. There's much more iron available.
Well, different superconductors need to be kept at different temperatures as well. So the lower you've got to lower that temperature and keep it sustained at that temperature, the cheaper it's going to be.
That's right, and that's still cheaper to run.
It's cheaper to run if you don't have to drop it that low. Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
So the problem with this one is the iron they've come up with is cheaper to produce, smaller in physical size. They still need to run at those same sort of temperatures.
Oh, okay.
5 degrees Kelvin, which is about 268, minus 268 degrees Celsius, roughly.
Yeah, okay.
So same sort of temperatures that you mentioned in the beginning. So they haven't got past that one, but just the expense of producing the machine and the availability. So iron is much easier to get than niobium tin alloys that they have to create for normal MRIs. Then you start to go, well, are there some other practical purposes here? What else could we do with that? Now, I immediately think of magnets in EVs, but you're not going to have them running around at 5 degrees Kelvin. So that's a bit of an issue there. So not sure that this particular solution is practical for them, but other things we might need powerful magnets for, definitely there's no reason you couldn't use this for those as well. Or get to the stage where you say, no, AI, I want you to keep working on this, but I can't be getting things at 5 degrees Kelvin. Can you do something else better with that? But even maglev trains, for example.
Yeah, maglev trains I was going to talk about.
It would be practical. They're using enough power anyway. It would be practical, not fantastic, but practical to have something at 5 degrees Kelvin with that. So you could do it with things like that are still large industrial machines like a train. So again, it's just an exciting time for all this material science and all these things there. Just think of the 92, 93 naturally occurring elements, the combinations of those that we know about.
Yep.
But then, wow, it is unlimited, isn't it?
Discovered.
Yeah.
And so, the other thing I've been telling my students is to go and invent a superconductor that operates at room temperature.
Yep.
And we're on our way.
Has that just been an assessment task you've given them for next semester?
Yeah.
and give it to me,
Good luck
and just then don't ever mention it again.
Skin cancer is such a dirty word, and it's a shadow that lurks in the back of many Australians' consciousness. We've become much more sun-smart as a nation, a far cry from the shirtless bogan culture of the World Series cricket crowds of the 80s. We've learned to become vigilant when it becomes time to check for skin cancer. Early diagnosis increases survival rates enormously, but it has always required a regular checkup from a GP or skin specialist, which means waiting possibly months for an appointment, and that may be a very costly delay. But Matt, things may change with a simple scan using our phones soon.
Our phones and our eyes. This is quite fascinating. Now, I love when Australia's number one in the world. I love it when we are great at something. I like when we beat New Zealand at something. That's fantastic. This one I'm not so...
Skin cancer is a big one in Australia, and so there's no surprise that there's been a lot of research into this.
Absolutely right. And this is one where we are number one in the world, but not something that we should get too excited about. We're number one in melanoma rates across the world. So, and again, as you've mentioned, with all those logical reasons, we have got a fairly high exposure rate. And we're getting smarter and we're getting better, but still just walking around and trying to do all sensible things, we're still getting a lot of exposure to the sun. So you think about, as you said, a body check. You think about taking your smartphone out, taking a photo of a little mole and seeing if it changes. We kind of are getting better at that, but it's still hard to keep track of all that. But now we've got, and this is actually being trialled at the Prince of Wales Hospital now, as we speak, maybe not this exact second, but as we speak, the trial's happening. And what they're using is a little gadget that clips over a smartphone camera, and you take a photo of your eye, not moles in your body, not your skin overall. You take a photo of your eye. Now, they've been using this not with a smartphone. They've got a desktop equivalent of this, a machine that goes bing, I assume, sitting at Prince of Wales Hospital. They've been using this, but they're trying to see how close they can get the results with this. Biomarkers in our eyes act as an indicator for how much sun exposure we've had, and it can give indicators about 10 years in advance. So this information is vaguely known already. Seeing photos of eyes and then matching that up to what skin cancers people get, they go, we knew 10 years ago this person was going to have some problems with skin cancer. We should have had some more regular checks to make sure we could pick up on this. So, and I did start to think about sunglasses. Maybe if you're a really good wearer of sunglasses, that might influence it slightly. But just in general, people get exposure to our eyes that we can't see, we don't know about. It doesn't affect our vision, but there are indicators there. So the idea here is if these tests go according to what they're hoping they go to, then you'll buy a little gadget, you'll stick it over your smartphone camera, take a photo of your eye, and the app will say, no, you're okay. Your skin exposure looks like it hasn't been that dramatic because your eye looks okay. Or, holy truth, we know you've got some skin cancers and it's now or it's 5 years' time or 10 years' time.
Wow.
Just from a photo of your eye. And I looked at this and I went, am I misunderstanding this? Am I not reading this article correctly?
Hocus pocus.
It does, doesn't it? So did I read this on a fandom comic somewhere? So, but no, the biomarkers in your eye are enough to say the likelihood. Now, it's not comprehensive. You could obviously be someone that was really good with sunglasses and didn't have much exposure, but you always drove your vehicle with your hand out the window and then you're going to get skin cancer on your hand, whatever. That was maybe a poor example, but there would be other examples. But it's a good way just to have a look at it and just to see maybe if we can do something. Because when I talk about number one in the world, we've got about 16,800 cases of melanoma each year.
Yeah.
So if we can do something to get onto those early.
And we don't have that big a population nationally either.
Not to be having that many people diagnosed with some form of melanoma. So if we can get onto that early, we know the research says the earlier you get onto a melanoma, then the more likely that you're going to survive. And we've got pretty good survival rates, 90% survival rate from melanoma. Again, I think that's because of early detection.
Early detection.
That's right, yeah. So, it's quite fascinating.
Definitely a step in the right direction. And check that out. In an uber health-conscious society where weighing meal portions and calorie counting is commonplace, life is about to become so much easier by simply getting AI to scan your meals. And does that sound enticing? Getting AI to scan your meals for you? Sounds like a whole lot of pressure. Matt, what are the chances that AI develops a smarmy, judgy attitude as well?
Oh, I hope so.
You going to eat that?
Do you think that's enough cake for you today?
Another portion? Are you sure?
So that'd be good. That might help a lot of people. But some people that are trying to lose weight, they go through this process of counting calories. And I wish we'd say counting kilojoules, but people still say counting calories. Maybe the alliteration there they like.
Yeah. Sorry, I did drop that, that imperial unit in there. So
That's right.
Apologies.
But I think it is. It's just because we've said it for forever.
Yep.
It's like, that thing, that's miles away. But no one actually says how many miles in Australia. Maybe in America they do. So counting calories, what a pain. Every bit of food you get, how many calories has that got, or how many kilojoules, let's weigh it, or let's look on the packaging. And I think, I've never done it, but I think if you were someone who did that, you'd be really good at it for a little while.
Yeah, that's right. This has got a shelf life.
That's right.
It's only going to last for a certain amount of time.
Absolutely right. It would tire very quickly. So why don't we bring in a bit of AI and video analysis? So forget about telling AI what food it is, analysing it, photographing it. Just have a video of you eating, and it's analysing the food. Now, obviously, it's got a database of a whole range of different foods. Analyse that, analyses how big those portions are, and then at the end of the day, gives you an approximation of your kilojoules. But in the tests they've done so far, it's been accurate to within 4.4%. So it just means setting up something to video you while you eat. That might be a bit weird. Sitting at the restaurant, what are you doing? Just putting a video here while I eat.
So I can tell that the steak is low fat and that the cake that you're eating is sugar free or whatever.
Well,
fingers crossed.
That'd be some very good subtleties there. I wonder how it would go with some of those things there. How does it know that you've chosen that particular cola drink that's the sugar-free or the diet version of that? I don't know to the nuances of that, but I do like the idea of it just going, right, I'm going to look at my weight, I'm going to try and address obesity in the world. Just here, I'll video me while I eat. I mean, I still think that sentence sounds a bit strange, doesn't it? I'm going to video me while I eat. So anyway, that's the thing. But
and it knows what a Big Mac looks like.
Exactly right. So, and it probably would. Common things like that, absolutely. It'd be more when you cook a banana cake at home and then eat some of that, working out exactly what that's going to do depending on your little special recipe. But
maybe it's got to watch you make the cake as well.
maybe. Now it gets weirder.
This is sounding like George Orwell.
And then just upload it to this secure cloud, and then away we go. But I think the bottom line is that you would get an estimation. It may not be perfectly accurate, but the other part is with a lot of these types of tools, it's not even about the absolute number. It's about the comparison. So how many kilojoules did you consume every day or on average last week per day? And let's look at it this week. So even though that banana cake you made, it might get that a bit wrong, but it would say, well, last week it was this based on 2 pieces of banana cake. This week it was 1 piece of banana cake. So the estimations there, I think, would be more a comparison basis.
Keep your banana cake to a minimum, perhaps?
Maybe.
Now, with the onset of AI, no jobs are safe. Not even for those adorable drug-detecting dogs. AI robot dogs are now being trialled by the Dutch police to help conduct raids on drug labs. Matt, in Amsterdam, are you kidding me? Those robot dogs are going to blow a fuse.
I did find that amusing. And I've been to Amsterdam, and one thing I found fascinating was I picked up the tourist guide, the book, to have a look about Amsterdam, and one of the bits of advice in there was about buying drugs. And so it told you about
the best places.
Well, basically, make sure you go to the strip shops that have got the, not strip as in clothes, but as in along a strip mall. Go to those shops to buy their registered, authorised dealers. Be careful when you're approached on the street by people. Be careful when you might be looking at this type of drug versus this type of drug. And I'm reading a tourist guide put out by a government department. I'm going, this is just blowing my mind that you've got advice about drug buying in a tourist guide. So it is a bit weird going through Amsterdam and having drugs as a part of the normal scene and shops you can walk into and buy things that sound like they're drug related. So the Dutch police obviously have a problem. Apparently at the moment they're doing raids on illegal drug labs about 3 to 4 times a week.
Wow.
Now, I'm assuming these are the hard, like typically marijuana seems to be pretty readily available, but probably this is the ice or the cocaine or whatever. All those sort of things. So I'm assuming that's what it is. And obviously in the tourist guide, they're the things they say, don't go and buy those things and they're illegal, etc. And they're probably not good to take anyway. So it's a bit risky because I don't think that some of these places that are running these illegal drug labs love the idea of the police knocking on the door and say, can I have a look at your operation? In fact, they might probably be a bit more aggressive than knocking on the door, and maybe the response they get back from the drug labs is a bit more aggressive. People's lives are put at risk. But the other part, you want to be sure that they're producing something rather than knocking on the door, make a raid, and there's people in there doing cross-stitch, and you go, oh, sorry, we'll get you a new door.
We've just come to have a look at your drug lab, ladies, if that's all right.
Yeah, can you put the cross-stitch aside and let's look at the drug lab? Oh, right, that's through the other door.
Oh, yeah, gotcha.
So we know about Spot the robot dog. We've talked about Spot on several occasions. I love Spot, but I love the idea that Boston Dynamics said, here's a robot dog. There are myriad uses for the robot dog. We're not going to go and try and come up with all those uses because people around the world will do that. We've only got a team of...
That's their job.
Yeah, that's right. We've got our team, hundreds of people, thousands, whatever it is. But out there in the world, there's millions, well, there are billions of people. Let them come up with the ideas. So the Dutch police have said, on this robot dog, we're going to make it so we can go into these drug labs. The first thing it's got is the ability to sniff out drugs. And that comes down to surface area. We know that dogs have an ability to smell things more accurately than humans because the patch that molecules can land on is much bigger in a dog's nose than a human's nose.
Yeah.
Go further again and have it detecting just certain molecules. So Spot the robot dog, fitted with a drug detection device, is only looking for the molecules that matter. A dog still might get distracted by a cat or might get distracted by some meat. Maybe with sniffer dogs, the drug dealers often talk about the fact they try and hide, not giving advice here, but try and hide their drugs inside other things that smell strong. So if you go through the airport, the dog doesn't come on and go, oh, there's some drugs in there because they can't smell them. But in this scenario, Spot is only trained to look for those molecules of certain drugs. So it's going to be more accurate for a start. So Spot, have a bit of a walk around this area here. We think there's a drug lab. Yes, I can smell it. Okay, now Spot, go in. And so Spot goes in. This isn't armed. We've talked before about some scary Spot versions that have got armory on them. But this basically goes in, makes sure it's a drug lab, tells them these guys are busted. And they don't want Spot to be shot up, but that's a possibility. But that would still be better than a human being shot by these people in this drug lab. So it's a good drug detection tool, a good initial make the raid tool, and then you've got the police to come in and do the hard work afterwards.
I reckon it's going to be a bit intimidating as well when this robot dog arrives on your doorstep.
Have you met many drug dealers? I don't know if they're easily intimidated. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that Spot would scare them that much, but maybe you're right.
I reckon having a robot dog on your doorstep would be a problem.
Yeah, well, for you and I it might be, especially one that's trying to detect drugs, which, why are you coming here?
Yeah, good point.
That's right. Yeah, anyway, it's an interesting one and just another use of Spot, which is fantastic.
And that's all there's time for today, folks. The day is just too lovely to be stuck indoors in a room without windows, so we're going to bust out of here. Thanks for another cracking Tech Talk, Matt.
And what I've got to go and do to fix my voice, I think, is go and use one of those deep fakes that we've played with before. So anyone I want to talk to over the next couple of days, I just need to type it up, have my voice replicated so I can have a normal conversation with them. Maybe I should have done that for
I thought you survived quite well today. Well done.
Oh, thank you.
Folks, some big take-homes today. If you're sitting frustrated at the lights, then it's all AI's fault, and that's where you need to direct your anger. Also, get your skin checked regularly. You've got nothing to lose by it. And lastly, don't cook drugs in a lab because robot dogs are coming to get you, and then an AI judge is going to throw you in jail, and that's a fact. Thanks for tuning in again today, folks. Each shiny new Tech Talk episode has been hand-polished with 13 coats of the finest shellacs, each delivered with nanofibre cloths to give a glossy finish that would reflect the light from Alpha Centauri itself. I'm your host, James Eddy, signing off on another week. Matt and I hope to catch you again in our next week with another mint condition episode of our humble little podcast. Don't forget to tell all your friends about us because there's so much good to go around. See you next week.